Hello and welcome to Forever Learning Dev, where today I'm going to be talking about Waterfall versus Agile and why I think you should consider moving from a Waterfall process over to an Agile one. Now I'm going to try and keep this video short and compact at around the 5-minute mark so that it's easy to watch and digest. It's a big subject to try and get in a small amount of time, so let's not waste any time and get stuck right in. So here we've got the stages you might find in your project if you're following a waterfall process. If we draw a line of effort in terms of how many people were getting involved in the different stages of the project, it might look something a little bit like this. Once we get to dev and testing, we'll see a spike. If we look at the return on investment based off of that effort in those stages, it will probably look something along the following. We'll get some tangible results and some tangible return on investment once we start to hit the dev and testing stages. So, as the project goes on, what the managers will probably hear is that everything's green and everything is going fine. Probably much to the manager's delight. But at some point we'll get to the test phase, things will suddenly go red, and we'll find, what have we got? Bugs. And a lot of them. Now this wasn't part of the Gantt chart at the beginning. So what are we going to have to do? We're going to have to replan the project, go back to the customers, and extend that delivery deadline. And of course, once we extend that delivery deadline, we add more resources and time, our cost for this project at the bottom also increases. So with our new plan, what do? We go through the bug fixing phase. Everything seems to be going according to the new plan. Everything's fine. And then suddenly we get to UAT, give it to the customers. What happens? The customers turn around and say, well, that's not what we asked for. So what do we get? Change requests, which means once again, we have to go back to the customer and renegotiate a deadline. So we have to adjust the delivery date. And what does that mean? Once again, it means that our cost for the entire project once again increases. If we're lucky, things might go smoothly from there, but my money's on the fact that you'll probably go through the same bugs issues and second phase change request issues as we did the first time round. So when is it we want to be catching these bugs? Is it months and months, possibly even over a year down the line as we hit the test phase? No. Ideally, we want to be catching these bugs right at the beginning as soon as we're creating those bugs. And it's exactly the same with the change requests. We don't want to be learning about them for the first time once we hit the UAT. We want to be able to learn about them and be able to react to them right at the beginning as soon as we've created each little feature. We do that by delivering features in smaller increments. So what we're doing is we're taking small steps, delivering vertical end-to-end slices of functionality as we go, meaning that we're discovering and dealing with all the bugs related to that functionality along the way. And at the end of the increment, we're saying to the customers, here you go, what do you think? And we're getting that feedback to allow us to realign for our next step, our next increment. Another thing we can do to make sure that we're delivering value at every single one of those increments is to create a definition of done. Now I'll touch more upon a definition of done in a separate video, but for now what we can say is that it means that our work is going to meet a certain level of quality, a certain level of done, and that's a contract between us and the stakeholders. So why do we want to move away from Waterfall? Well, Waterfall leans towards linear or defined process control theory, which means it needs the same input every time and a fully repeatable process for that input to be able to give the same output every time. That makes Waterfall work really well for manufacturing lines. So in the case of a smartphone, we'll have the same parts go through exactly the same build process every single time. They'll be built in the same way to provide the same output. So every time the same smartphone will come out the end of that manufacturing line. Now in software, generally, the requirements are different every time, means we need to develop and deal with them differently, and the required output for each of those requirements is always different. Now on the other end of the spectrum, we have empirical process control, which stands on the 3 pillars of transparency, inspection, and adaptation. Now what that means in practice is that instead of taking these long punts towards the goal as Waterfall does, readjusting every time and taking another long punt and then another long punt until we finally reach the goal, what we actually do is that we take a step back, and with every single little step we follow those 3 pillars. So we take a small step, a small increment, we stop, we're transparent about all of our progress with ourselves and with the stakeholders. we inspect that with the stakeholders, and we adapt our course forward for the next step. And we do that with every single little step all the way until we get to our goal eventually. And there we have it. So that was about as compact as I could get while still trying to cover at least a semi-decent chunk of the Waterfall versus Agile basics. Obviously, there's a lot of topics and subjects I couldn't cover, so I very much encourage everyone to go out and do more reading, watch more videos, because there's a lot of great information out there on the internet to help support this. I hope it was at least a bit informative for those of you who are thinking of moving from a waterfall to an agile process. If you did find it useful, please give it a thumbs up or subscribe if you want to see more videos like it down the line. If you've got more information that can help others watching this, feel free to add it to the comments below, and hopefully see you again soon.